Good morning, Western Slope. Happy Thursday. I'm Dalen Brazelton. Let's talk about your weather. As a new winter storm starts to develop on the East Coast, the real question now is, what are we left with in Colorado? Well, some good news and some bad news. The good news is it's warm. The bad news is it's really warm. We got some nice clear skies expected on America's Mattress Live Tower Cam. We got a nice clear view of the night sky at this point in time. Sun fully going to be rising in a little bit under 2 hours here in the Grand Valley. We'll be seeing those mid to low 40s for Grand Junction and the surrounding regions today, as that very distinct warming trend will take us into the weekend and eventually next week seeing pretty consistent 50s to kick things off then. So going to be an interesting one to say the least. We're waking up right now to 24 degrees in Grand Junction, mid-20s as well for Paonia and Glade Park. Although I will note we're getting some reports that Paonia seems to be running a little bit warm right now, so this morning could be starting off a little bit on the cooler side. Delta and Montrose both seeing those mid-teens with Nucla in the upper teens. On that classroom forecast today for Grand Junction, first bells ringing to 21 degrees and sunny skies. Now that cloud coverage that we saw over the last couple of days, that is gone. High pressure has now fully returned to the region, so we're going to be seeing sunny skies all day long now after school activities, seeing 43 degrees, basically the same temperatures that we saw yesterday, now just with the added benefit of nice sunshiny skies. This is what I mean by same thing as yesterday. Low 40s starting at noon, and then that kicks out for the rest of the day. Going to be a lovely one. The morning hours, though, a little bit colder. Low 20s expected for a majority of it before we start warming up close to 9 a.m. For that Cozy Cat forecast, we got Phineas and Ferb hanging out with us all week long, and it's going to be a lovely morning to hang out with your cat. Today is kind of the first day that we're not seeing any of those effects from the winter storm last weekend. We're not seeing any cloud coverage, any fast wind speeds, and the temperatures are really starting to warm up as well. So we got some nice conditions, although I wouldn't exactly call them cozy per se. We will be seeing those low 40s in the afternoon, though. This is really interesting. We're basically exactly where we should be for this time of year, if not just a couple of degrees above that. That's the lovely thing about a warming trend. When you start really cold and you end super high, there's going to be a couple of days in between where we're seeing those Goldilocks temperatures, and that's kind of what we've been seeing the last few days. Now, starting tomorrow, it really starts to get out of hand where those mid-50s are going to kick off next week, and it's going to be about 15 degrees above those seasonal averages. Meanwhile, a lot of moisture might be clipping the front range in the form of some snow flurries, maybe some rainfall in those metro areas. That's going to continue to push out south, where we are seeing some freezing fog happening over there too. Now, what's very interesting about that is it's starting to push much further up north. For example, Oklahoma yesterday was covered in that freezing fog, but we're seeing a little bit of that visibility as well over here in Colorado, where only a little couple of areas, mainly Vail Pass, seeing a little bit to the south of that, and then Rabbit Ears also seeing a little bit. But for the most part, we're not really leaving with too much here, as high pressure is really keeping both sides of the aisle here pretty dry and pretty clear. Now, seeing that cloud coverage in retrospect on our satellite and radar over the last couple of days, that's where we're seeing that start to shift. The northern areas, the northernmost parts of the state are seeing just a little bit of snow shower potential, but it's not really pushing down to really any major city areas, and that's starting to melt off pretty quickly as well. Because of how warm things have been, we might see a little bit of precipitation heading into next week, but in Grand Junction, when we see this likelihood of 10 to 20%, that usually means that it's just concentrated in those higher elevations. Now, over the next week or so, here's what we're seeing. Nice, clear conditions, basically no cloud coverage until next week, and then a very distinct warming trend. This goes for the highs and the lows. Overnight tonight, low 20s. By the time we're heading into next week, basically 30 degrees. Now, Montrose taking a little bit of a detour. We are seeing those mid to upper 30s for today before we start to see those 40s possibly tomorrow, and then increasing from there. But it is noticeably cooler in the Uncompahgre. It's going to be a lovely weekend ahead.